Welcome to another edition of the McEnulty Method, where financial expert Frank McEnulty is going to share his insights with us to help us get further down the road to financial independence. Frank, how are you doing?
Fine. How are you today, Bill?
I'm good. Have sort of a change in program. We've gotten some emails and some comments, people asking if you could take us through more of a step-by-step approach to the financial planning process. But first, just quickly remind us why it's so important to have a plan.
Well, it's important to have a plan so you have options later in life. You have options next week, even. We're saving money for a certain thing, but it gives us the opportunity to do something else because life changes, right? We never know what's going to happen.
There you go. Now, when we've talked about this before, I know you said like one of the first things you have to do is determine your current financial situation. So just tell us what the basic steps on how someone does that.
Well, you can't really determine where you're going to go until you determine what you have in order to get there, if that makes sense. You may have a trip, but you plan it and say, okay, what do we have and what are we going to need to get there? And it's the same with your financial situation. What do you have? What are you going to need to get there?
All right. So you kind of look at your assets, your bank account, what's going on, maybe your job. How detailed does this have to be?
Well, once again, it depends on who we're talking to here. We're trying to guide this more towards the student or just the graduated student. So theirs is a lot easier because most of them don't have anything. What they have is future income to plan for. But on the other hand, how detailed does it need to be? I don't think you want to get what they call paralysis by analysis. You don't need to go down to the nearest penny because you don't know what the nearest penny is going to be on what you're looking at. It's general ideas. Okay, I'm going to get a job and I think I'm going to make $6,000 a month. That's pretty good. So the first thing, what's that going to be after taxes, right? Those evil tax people always want their share. And you can wait until you get your first check and be very shocked. Or you can go on the internet. There's lots of little programs. You can punch in your wages and it'll give you an approximation of what your check's going to be. But at least then you know what you're working with.
All right. Makes perfect sense. Now, I know that before you said that one of the things that you need to figure out is how you really feel about money. That we all have these feelings and beliefs that, maybe they're not even conscious, but tell us why that's important.
Well, it's important because it guides how you're going to plan for the money you're getting. So you're going to get a certain amount of salary coming in. Now, do you need to have the really fancy apartment so that you can impress your friends, which might eat up half your paycheck or more each month? Or can you live in a nice apartment that's just in a normal building, normal address? It's that type of thing. The same goes for cars and clothing and everything else. Are you using your money to help yourself or impress your friends? I think is one of the key things you need to figure out.
Well, I was going to say that makes a lot of sense. Because I guess it gets into why are you choosing the goals you're going to choose? And like you said, if it's to impress other people, ultimately, what does that get you?
Not much in the long run. But I also think, yeah, everybody grows up different. Everybody treats money different. Everybody's household treated money different. Everybody's household had different levels of money. I have friends that are my age that grew up in very, very poor circumstances, and they will basically work till they die because no matter how much money they have, they're always convinced in the back of their heads that tomorrow they will be poor. And so they can never stop.
No, like I said, I've had friends that they firmly believe that money is the root of all evil, and rich people are mean and ruthless. So how would you ever become one?
Well, money is a tool, just like anything else. So it really comes back to, what do you think you want? And what tools, or what amount of tools, do you need to get there? If one of your goals in life is to always take an overseas vacation every year, just because to you that's the best thing you could do, you love the idea, then you need to start saving towards that goal. If, on the other hand, your main goal in life is to buy a house, or your number one goal is to buy a house, well, then you're going to be saving a different way. And it may impact your current lifestyle, because any of us probably spend money we don't need to on a monthly basis. And so if we have a reason to be really saving that money, then it's not as big a burden. It's like, well, I'm putting this money in the bank. I don't know what I'm doing with it. It's just sitting there. Gee, maybe I should use it for something fun. Well, no, that's your house account. That's your vacation account. That's your car account. That eventually kids' college education account. There's a goal and a purpose for it. So it becomes a lot more real, and I think in a lot of ways not as much as of a burden, because you're actually accomplishing something by having that goal and saving towards it.
All right, that makes sense. Uh, when people are formulating their goals, when they're deciding, what they want to go for, how much should they take into consideration things like the economy in general?
We can only worry about so much when it comes right down to it. I have this conversation with students and other people all the time. How much that happens in Washington, D.C. really affects you on a daily or monthly basis? I don't know. We can get all upset about it. We can get mad about what this person's doing, but when it comes right down to it, how much is it affecting you on a daily basis? Now, is your job directly tied to a governmental program? Okay, that may affect you more. But most people, as long as the economy is moving forward and not going backwards, their personal economics are pretty good, or usually pretty safe.
All right. Again, that makes sense to me because, as you said, the things that happen in Washington on a daily basis don't really seem to affect me much at all. But let's get back to planning. So, okay, if you've sort of assessed your situation, you know where you stand, you have an idea about what it is you want to do. Now we're going to dig into the specifics. So again, what do you do with that? Somebody's got an idea that, I really would like to save for a house, but I also want to save for a car. How do they start to prioritize and then break this down?
Well, I think first, you do need to get to a certain level of detail. What's your current income? Do you have any savings already? What does it cost you to live? Your current lifestyle? And do you have any debts that you have to worry about already? Because that's going to help determine how much money you have spare at the end of the month. So once you determine that out, then you have to look at and say, what's realistic? Okay, I, I make X, I can save $500 a month. Okay, that's, you're probably not going to be buying a house anytime soon. Uh,
Yeah.
it's, so you either have to look for places to save more, or you have to adjust what your goals are, or maybe even the horizon of your goals. I mean, like we seem to bring up, I seem to bring up every time, in Southern California here, buying a house is a crazy goal for almost anybody. And I think most young people starting out now, the way they actually get to buying a house is mom and dad or somebody helps them out with the down payment, because it's a lot.
That kind of brings up another thing. It's almost like you want to get to a certain spot, let's say you want to get to home ownership. There's got to be a lot of different ways to get there. But how do you sort of figure those out and choose which alternative you think is going to work best for you?
Well, I have this conversation with students all the time about their careers. And yes, Southern California is extremely expensive. It's very hard to buy a house. What about living somewhere else for a while? Yes, I know the weather's perfect, the sun's shining, the birds are singing, it's in the mid-70s, it's perfect here. Unfortunately, everybody else on the face of the planet thinks it's perfect here. And so they're here, and that's why the prices go up. There's lots of other places you could start your career, you could move to, that are more conducive to your goals. If your number one priority is owning your own home, well, maybe it would make sense for you to look into other job markets to find a job where you could actually afford to buy a house, where housing prices are half or a third of what they are here for more house. So I think people need to expand their way of thinking and not get that, well, I'll never buy a house because I live in Southern California. Okay, you don't have to.
There you go. Consider all the alternatives, because it's a big world. There's a lot going on. So, I mean, I think, like you said, that could even apply to not just where you live, but what you want to do, or even if you want to change careers. I mean, it just seems like there's a lot out there. Could you speak to that just briefly?
Well, there's a tremendous amount out there. As you know, I've been in every state except North Dakota. And being a real estate background, I always look at the real estate wherever I am. And there are a lot of jobs in other places other than Southern California. There's good jobs. Yes, does it get cold sometimes? Yes. Might it get hot sometimes? Yes. But what do you want out of life? Do you want to spend your whole life working and living in an apartment just because the weather's nice here? Now, nothing wrong with that. Lots of people do it. The same piece of, lots of people live in New York City and never buy a home either, because they're perfectly happy living the apartment lifestyle. That's what they've chosen. They adjust to it. They like it. And so it really, once again, does come down to, what do you like? What do you want?
There you
And
go.
do we know what we want and like until we try it?
So that sort of takes us back to earlier in the process. How do you know your personal goals? How do you feel about money? What do you want to do? I guess it's all really taking a deep look and figuring this thing out, where you really want to go.
Right. And sometimes you just have to try to see what's important. We've all wanted the fancier cars. Now, And then after a while, okay, I'm spending a lot of money on this car. Why am I doing this? I can get along just as well in a car that costs a third of the price of this. And so your priorities change over time. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, and it happens all the time. And in fact, it's about time for us to end this one, this edition. But maybe next time you can talk about having a plan that is like not just one overarching thing, but like a 1-year plan. I don't know, 5-year plan, a 25-year plan. If that makes sense, I'd love to hear about it.
That would be a great next topic, because who knows what's going to happen in 1 year, 5-year, 20-year. Well, some of us 20 years may not be not important, but for the younger group, 20 years goes by in a blink of an eye, and their lives will change over a 20-year period. They'll change over a 5-year period. So
All right.
it's good to have a plan that's flexible and allows for changes.
All right. Well, then I think my plan then is to say thank you, Frank. This has been a good one.
Okay, thanks, Bill. We'll see you next week.
You got it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.